Hello and welcome to my new movie channel, MANCINIMA. See what I did there? Mancini, cinema, no? Alright, whatever. So in this brand new episode, what we're going to be looking at is this, which is FrightFest. This past week I attended the annual FrightFest in London's Leicester Square. 5 straight nights of horror movies. Little Lindsay Wallace wouldn't know what hit her. This is FrightFest's 23rd year, and of course they provided some absolute gems as usual, which will go on to become renowned horror classics. Plus some absolute stinkers, which will never see the light of day again. Of course, you can't see everything while you're at FrightFest, and in fact you can only see a maximum of 25 films. So what I've done is I've thought about 5 of those films that I'm going to present to you today, and these are the movies I would recommend you see should you get the opportunity. So let's take a look at the first one, which is Next Exit. So first up is the movie Next Exit, as I mentioned. Next Exit begins with a young boy communicating with his dead grandfather. This provides evidence of an afterlife, and people who are fed up actually living in this existence decide to end their lives in order to move on to the next. As such, suicide pain-free assisted clinics are set up so that people can travel to these clinics, book an appointment, and you say, well, next Thursday I want to go and commit suicide. They'll take you there, they'll put you under, and they'll ease you into the afterlife so you can live your life that way. 2 such strangers are deciding to do this. You've got them played by Katie Parker and Rahul Kohli, and they initially bicker. There's a lot of friction between the 2 characters as they share a road journey on their way to their assisted appointments. And along the way they get to know each other, they get to understand one another, and they actually begin to fall in love with one another. And then the question is, do they go through with their assisted suicides or not once they reach their destination? It's a really emotional film, it's a really funny film in places, and it's got a really good tale along the journey, fantastic performances, and of course I won't tell you the ending, but I recommend that you go and see that one. It's a really good film. It's the first one at FrightFest that actually stood out to us as being something that will stand the test of time. So yeah, Next Exit is the one that I recommend first on my list. Next up is Torn Hearts, directed by Bria Grant. This tells the tale of 2 country and western singing best friends from Nashville who are trying to make it into the big time. They go to seek out their idol, Harper Dutch, played by Katie Sagal, and she lives in a mansion as a recluse after her own sister died. We're not sure whether she commits suicide or whether she was murdered. And they go there to seek her assistance because Harper wants to make a comeback, and of course they want to make the big time and they think they want to make a track together. However, when they get to the mansion, they find that Harper isn't quite what she seems, and she's a little bit more sadistic and twisted than they initially thought she was. And so she puts them through a number of torturous situations, pitting them against one another, causing them to fight one another, question one another's loyalty to the band and to each other. And it's a really good, funny, suspenseful, very violent movie. And that's the next of my recommendations for, or from, FrightFest this year, FrightFest 2022. Let's move on to the next movie, which is Barbarian. Now, I can't tell you too much about Barbarian because we've been put under a review embargo. All I can say is that it's a very suspenseful film. It keeps you guessing. You don't know where you're going from one moment to the next. The film is going in one direction. You think, right, okay, I know where this is going. Then all of a sudden it'll twist and it'll go somewhere else and you're in a new situation. You go, oh, okay, so where are we going now? And that's what I liked about it. It really kept me on my toes, really kept me thinking, where am I going with this movie? The movie is due to open, I think, in a couple of weeks' time, so keep your eye out for Barbarian. So one movie I can talk about, of course, comes out this Friday being Friday the 2nd of September, and it's called Fall. It's a very, very suspenseful movie. This is by the directors who did 47 Meters Down. You remember that movie where the other girls were trapped in a shark cage at the bottom of the ocean? This takes it to the other extreme. This is 2 girls trapped at a very high height. So we start the movie with Becky and her husband and Becky's best friend Hunter all climbing a rock face. And then you've got Becky's husband has a tragic accident. Becky gets withdrawn from the world. She doesn't want to see anybody, talk to anybody. And then Hunter comes up with a plan to kind of get her back into the world. And she says, right, so your husband would not want you to not climb anymore. So let's go climb this structure and we'll scatter his ashes at the top of the structure. And then hopefully that'll bring you back to the world and bring you back into climbing and you can move on with your life. So after a little bit of persuasion, Becky agrees to do this. She goes out with Hunter. They drive out into the middle of this desert, and there is a 2,000-foot telephone or some kind of mast. Anyway, it's a great big tower. It's a 2,000-foot tower and they climb this tower. Now, as you're watching this movie, even the climb up, people were getting a bit anxious. You know, every now and again the camera would look down, you'd see the ground disappearing, getting lower and lower and lower behind them. It's a very rusty tower, it's a very old tower, and they managed to climb all 2,000 feet up on the inside and get to the top. Then when they get to the top, they scatter the ashes, everything seems fine, and then they talk about coming back down. And that's where the problem begins. As they start to come back down, the ladder breaks away, completely away at the top, and there's absolutely no way to get from the very top back down again. So that's where your dilemma begins. You are stuck on top of this 2,000 foot tower. You can't communicate with anybody because there's no communication up there. The winds are blowing, vultures are circling. How do you get off this tower? And that is the main premise of Fall. And I'm not kidding you. If you see this in an IMAX theatre, this will give you heart palpitations. And like it did, even thinking about it now, as we were sitting in the cinema watching it, people were getting sweaty palms every time they went up higher, every time they edged close to the edge of the tower. People were wiping their palms, getting anxious. There was a lot of rocking backwards and forwards in the FrightFest seats. It's one of the most tense and suspenseful movies I have ever seen in my life. It may not be completely executed well, because there's a couple of bits you go, oh my god, come on, you could have done this and you could have done that. But you've got to suspend disbelief. You just got to go with the ride, and I think you'll really enjoy Fall. So Fall is highly recommended on my list, so please go and see Fall. So my number one movie of FrightFest is a movie called Candyland. Now, Candyland is set in a truck stop where the truckers come in and they are serviced by sex workers. The sex workers themselves are a nice, tight-knit group of people. There's a couple, well, I think it's 3 girls and a guy, and they all look out for one another. They have a madam who kind of runs them. But yeah, they're like a family, and they look out for one another and make sure everybody's okay. So what happens is then a religious cult comes along. I think it's a religious cult. And this father figure gets out and he starts throwing his agenda on the people. You shouldn't be doing this. I know what you're doing. You know, you're sinful and all this business. In the back of his car is a young girl called Remy. Now Remy manages to escape the cult, and the cult run away. She is then adopted in with the sex workers, and they adopt her as a member of their family. They look after her and give her new clothes and everything. And basically they say to her, look, you know, you can stay here with us. That's fine. But if you do stay here with us, our rule is if you stay here, you've got to work. So therefore, Rennie has to do the same kind of work, the same kind of sex work that they do. However, once Remy starts this, a series of grisly murders start to happen around the truck stop. And the movie just basically keeps you guessing about what's going to happen next. It's very tense, it's very exciting. What I would say is that although they are sex workers, you do actually get to, you know, like these characters. You do get to feel for them, care for them. So when eventually they start getting murdered one by one, it really does hit you in the feels. So yeah, Candyland is actually a very, very good film. I highly recommend it. It's a little bit sexy at the beginning, but if you can get past that and look into the story, it's very suspenseful, very bloody, and a really bloody good horror film. It's my number one choice for FrightFest 2022. Okay, so with that, that was my top 5. So the only thing I can do now is recommend a couple of bubblers under. We did see Terrifier 2. Now Terrifier, if you've seen Terrifier 1, you'll know that's a bloody, gory, yet funny, and really well made slasher film. Terrifier 2 is more of the same. It's bloodier, it's gorier, it's funnier, and I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend that as well. It's not quite enough to make my top 5 because I think these films were more original. The ones that I mentioned before, I think they had a bit more of an originality about them. But yeah, Terrifier 2, Bubbling Underneath, I recommend that you go and see that. And another one that I would recommend you see is one called Who Invited Them, which is a home invasion movie. Kind of. This family have a housewarming party. They invite all their friends, and then once the party's over, they discover 2 people have stayed behind. People they actually don't know who they are. The idea initially is to kick them out of the house, but then this charming couple charm the house owners around, and they begin to make friends with them. But then there's another twisted agenda lying underneath. Who Invited Them is a good film. It was going great guns. I'm not sure it ended in the best way. I think possibly the ending could have been much better, but had they twitched that ending, maybe that would have made my top 5 as well. So another movie to look out for, Who Invited Them. So that is from my recommendations for FrightFest 2022 for you to look out for when they come to your local cinema or your local streaming service. What I'm going to do now is show you some footage actually from FrightFest and show you what the atmosphere is like in FrightFest, because it really is a fantastic place to be. If you can ever get there, I would recommend you go to FrightFest. Let's take a look at some of that footage. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you enjoyed the footage from FrightFest. I hope you enjoyed my recommendations from FrightFest 2022. Like I say, look out for it next year. FrightFest.co.uk is the website that you need to go to if you want to look at or book in for next year. Yep, so come back to this channel, please. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I really do hope you've enjoyed it. Please give it the big old thumbs up. There's a thumbs up button down there. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the notification bell so that I can let you know when I'm doing more of these videos. And I will be doing more, but I won't be doing them on the regular. They'll just be every now and again. So just keep your eye out for MANCINIMA, and you'll see the new videos. And please subscribe to the channel. I've got these film reviews. I've got some dinosaurs. I've got some travel videos. Bit of everything, really. Bit of collectors. So yeah, please come back to the channel, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.